salam had died. But they say that there is no mention of Imam Mahdi in the Holy Quran. How can we prove to them that the belief of the appearance of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam is based on the Quranic teaching?
On this question I have already spoken many times, perhaps in this Liqa al-Arab as well. But these questions come up again and again, and perhaps I should answer you again, but I'll try to be brief. There are two aspects of this question which have to be fully understood before I begin to answer this question. They have begun to believe in the death of Jesus Christ, correct? And what has happened because of that? The hope of revival is gone overboard. Even if they have accepted the death of Jesus Christ, the question is, why was his life important to them? It was important to them because Ahmad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam repeatedly told the Ummah that when they will be in a very bad state, it will be the descent of Jesus which will save them from utter ruin and destruction, and he would come to breathe a new life into the Ummah. There's not only one purpose of the advent of Jesus, peace be upon him. The second purpose which is mentioned is that he would fight the Christian world and break the cross, and he will fight the Dajjal, the Antichrist, right? So if Jesus is no more to come, who will do all these things for the world of Islam? Or will Islam not need them anymore? Where lies the hope of their survival if you do away with Jesus? So it's not so easy to do away with Jesus. But they want to do away with everything. That is the second aspect of this question. It's all right, one worry less. We have got rid of one possible Imam from God. Now let's do away with the second one too. That is Imam Mahdi. And they say we do not find any mention of Imam Mahdi in the entire Holy Quran. I don't know how they read the Quran. The Quran does mention the prophets of Allah as Imam Mahdi in plural. Read the list, I'll show you where. In Surah Anbiya, for instance, there is that verse, and it's also repeated elsewhere, in which the Holy Quran speaks of the earlier prophets. And at the end of that list, you read, كَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاهُمْ أُمَّةً أَئِمَّةً. So كَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. There are the two verses which I'm going to read out. وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ. You see, before that, قُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. This is the list of prophets which are being mentioned. وَأَرَادُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا فَجَعَلْنَاهُمُ الْأَخْسَرِينَ وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَلُوطًا إِلَى الْأَرْضِ الَّتِي بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا لِلْعَالَمِينَ وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ نَافِلَةً وَكُلًّا جَعَلْنَا صَالِحِينَ. Who are these? Prophets of God or something else? Prophets of God. And who were they? وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ فِعْلَ الْخَيْرَاتِ وَإِقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ وَإِيتَاءَ الزَّكَاةِ وَكَانُوا لَنَا عَابِدِينَ. What is Aimma? What is the singular of Aimma?
Imam.
Imam. And anyone who is guided by somebody else, what is he called? Mahdi. So they are asking for one Mahdi. I'm showing them all the Mahdis who ever appeared before in the history of mankind. All the prophets of Allah are defined by the Quran as A'immatan Yahduna bi Amrina. Each one of them is an Imam who is being guided by Allah. So the singular of that is Al-Imam Al-Mahdi. So I don't know how they read the Quran. Which Quran do they read? They can't see these things. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. Now here the Holy Quran does not say that they brought each of them a new Sharia. This is the most beautiful expression of the Quran. You know, you can't defeat Quran. It says, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَإِقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ وَإِيتَاءَ الزَّكَاةِ. And this is the purpose of all religions. Whether a prophet brought a new law or did not bring, he always did this. He received wahi from God, and under the command of that wahi, he told people to do good deeds. As simple as that. And to believe in, to iqam salat, to perform the salat, and with all its the best requirements. Iqam salat means not just performing salat ordinarily, but to do it with the best of the requirements which are related to the Quran, to the performance of salat. The best requirements which are expected to be fulfilled when you say the salat. If you fulfill them, then you are yuqimuna salat, otherwise not. Wa itai zakat, and to give alms in the way of Allah. Wa kanu lana abidin, and they worshipped us alone, none else. So this is Imam Mahdi. And not only here, but the Imam Mahdi is mentioned elsewhere. If this is Imam Mahdi, means a prophet who speaks from wahi, from what he is spoken to by God, the one who does not guide mankind by himself, but as he is guided, he guides others. This is the definition of a prophet. So where in the Quran is the mention of any prophet to come? That is what they should ask. That prophet has to be an Imam Mahdi, or he is not a prophet. So it is mentioned in so many places. I'll refer to, first of all, the verse from Surah Al-Jumu'ah. According to Surah Al-Jumu'ah, يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ الْمَلِكِ الْقُدُّوسِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَكِيمِ هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. The verse is complete. What does it mean? The Holy Quran has raised from among the illiterate people, ignorant people, a prophet who belonged to them earlier. But by virtue of wahi, he is so completely changed that who did not know himself anything has become the teacher of the whole world. يُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. He receives guidance from Allah, that is, he is becoming Mahdi, the chief of all the Mahdis. He receives guidance from Allah and passes it on to them. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and purifies them. وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ, teaches them the book, wal hikmah, and the philosophy of the book as well, what lies underneath. إِن كَانُوا مِن قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. before his advent, they were in manifest transgression or ignorance. The whole message is completed. There doesn't seem to be anything left. But there is something to follow. وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. Who are those akhareen? لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. Who have not met these people, Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's followers and his companions. But lamma means not as yet. But a day would come when they would also be counted among those who, as if they have met Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What is the meaning of akhareen? Which is the fail or verb which commands this word akhareen. Ba'atha. There is no other verb mentioned in the whole surah, in the whole preceding verse. Can you find any? Ba'atha fil ummiyyin rasulan. There is just one verb, ba'atha. It also applies wa akharina minhum lamma yalhaqu bihim. Ba'atha to the same Rasul Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Only the people are changed. So this means a repetition of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It can't mean anything else. You see, this is something which you must understand very clearly. Ba'atha fil ummiyina rasulan. It is a Rasul who is being raised. So, wa akharina minhum, what about them? The same Rasul will be raised among them as well. Wa akharina minhum. Atafa is was fil ummiyyin rasulan. Here is the ataf. Ba'atha fil ummiyyin rasulan wa fil akhirina rasulan. Akhirina rasulan. Clear? From the Arabic, it cannot be translated in any other way, except that the expression Ba'atha fil ummiyina rasulan is repeated in relation to akhirin. That is, Ba'atha fil akhirina rasulan. Lamma yalhaqu bihim. Those akhirin who have not as yet met Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or these people, earlier people. So it is not just a question of any prophet being raised again. The Holy Quran specifically speaks of the second advent of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself. So how would they run away from it? And what follows further clarifies this point. وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ الْعَظِيمِ. Which means that don't think Muhammad Rasulullah himself would come. Somebody would come whose coming would be considered as if it was Muhammad Rasulullah who came. Because he will deliver the same message and he would lose his own identity to the identity of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That means he would be a perfect slave. He would not bring anything from himself. All that the Quran said, he would say. All that Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, he will do and say. So, this is why it is said, وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Which means in future, Allah would give this fazl to whomsoever He pleases. Right? ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ الْعَظِيمِ. Are we? But, all right. Huh? Different. Now the question is, who is this who is mentioned as Ba'asa fil Akhirin? Nobody else is mentioned as Ba'asa except Rasulullah sallam. It has to be he who would be raised among the Akhirin, but not in person. Otherwise, the Holy Quran shouldn't have said, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. The Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was known. So this is the question, whether our interpretation is right or wrong. If wrong, what other interpretation can be offered by anyone? None can be. The verse is very clear. These verses are very clear. But now I turn to Bukhari by way of explanation of this Quranic verse. Not to call people who do not believe in hadith as such, who demand a proof from the Quran. From the Quran I have offered the proof. But to satisfy them further, I quote a hadith from Bukhari to prove that this interpretation is right. According to Bukhari, this verse was revealed to Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam while he was sitting in company. The people sitting around him were his Sahaba, who were Arabs, except for one person, who was a non-Arab. His name was Salman Farsi. Understand this point? All were Arabis except one who was Ajami. Correct? So when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam recited this verse, one of his companions requested, who would be those, Ya Rasulullah, who are mentioned in this verse? Evidently, the questioner thought Muhammad Rasulullah himself would come, which is so clear. So let's find out who would be those blessed people among whom Muhammad Rasulullah will be raised again. Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not answer it. The first time the question was asked. It was repeated, he still did not answer. And the third time it was repeated, he turned to Hazrat Salman Farsi, put his hand on his shoulder and said, Law kana al-imanu inda thurayya lanalahu rajulun min haulai. Or according to one report, lanalahu rijalun min haulai. You understand? This verse speaks of the re-advent of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The questioner asks him, who will be those among whom you would be raised? And the answer is a different answer. It is an answer to a question which should have been asked. The question which should have been asked is, as I am going to explain. First of all, people should have inquired from Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you have come as the last messenger of God, perfect in everything. So will you yourself be sent again? And why? Will Quran change? If it does not change, what is the purpose of sending you again? And if it is you, will you be born again? Or you will descend from heaven, the other heavenly astral body which God would give you, will you come in that body again? So these should have been the questions. Why should there be any need for it? Who should come, you or somebody in your name? Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam answered all these questions. First of all, he turned to Salman Farsi, the only Ajami. He said, this time he is going to come from Ajam, not from among the Arabs. ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ الْعَظِيمِ. One question is answered. The second, why? Because lo khanal imano in the Thuraya. Despite my being the last final prophet of law, the people would have turned away from Islam. They would have turned away from Islam so much so that they are described by Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as if the faith had left the earth and gone to abide in Pleiades, in Suraya. That means the whole world of Islam would be emptied of faith. Can you believe such a thing to have happened? But this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Apparently they would all be Muslims, but the faith would practically leave them. So who would bring that faith back? Min hawlai. Salman Farsi, not his progeny, but people from him, from among those who, from where he belongs. Min hawlai does not mean necessarily his children. It means from among the people to whom he belongs, min hawlai. So, has not the question of Imam Mahdi being mentioned in the Quran fully answered? First of all, I spoke of those verses which declared all prophets of Allah as Aimma, al-Aimma, Yahduna bi amrina, according to God, or Yahduna bi amrillah. These are the Aimma who are mentioned, these are the prophets who are mentioned as Aimma. Secondly, will such a prophet come in Islam again? Is that also mentioned in the Quran? I have quoted Surah Jumu'ah. And the translation or explanation is given by Muhammad Rasulullah himself. What more would they require? This means that somebody would come. This time he will not be an Arab. This time he would be from among the non-Arabs. He would come not to bring a new law, but to revive the faith in Islam, a true faith, which would have abandoned the people of that time. Correct? There are so many other verses of which we may speak later. Translation, please.
كان السؤال